Hello and welcome to Who Does Rolls, the Mumble Jumbo for the 20 something of around about 20th, 21st, 22nd, somewhere around that of September. It is a brightish day. The weather has turned. It was lovely and gorgeous and warm, and now winter has come. It is chilly just in the evenings a little bit darker. Generally, this time of year, I used to loathe my retail days because it just, you could saw the encroaching darkness of Christmas coming and the hell that was. However, I am free of that at the moment, and instead have a whole fresh level of hell, which is called the NHS, and dealing with that shit show. But anyway, that's been fun. I have a couple of days off from work because otherwise there was danger of me either going postal or requiring therapy. So I'm off, which is, I thought I would do a video. That's what we're doing now. So hello, welcome to the video and stuff and nonsense. Let's dive into what we've been played, I guess, and then we'll kind of roll from there. So on that bombshell, let's see what I've been playing. Plaid Games. So we've been playing War of the Ring card game. I think that's it. War of the Ring. Fuck me. War of the Ring card game. I'm not saying it anymore. It is a card game equivalent of the big box edition of that game that shall now not be named. And it plays with a deck of cards. It's 4 players, seems to be its sweet spot, and you play each with your own preset deck of cards that you attack to almost smash up-ish, and I use that term very loosely as I think smash up is a shit show, but you have like locations come out every round that you're playing cards onto to try and take control of it, and that's pretty much it. But these decks are kind of pre-built in such a way that they have certain necks and certain ways to work. You have a partner in crime who's working either on the good side or the bad side with you, so there is a little synergy crossover with them. And it's got a really cool mechanism that you have to play, when you play a card out, you have to discard a card. And you've got this weird sort of deck cycling mechanism where if you're discarding cards out, but you can hope that that can cycle back into your deck to give you more the good shit later. And there's lots of different edge cases and things that cards only activate at certain times or can be used more stronger at certain points in the game. And all that. And it's quite interesting. I'm enjoying it. I did a separate video, which is on Patreon, which is an exclusive Patreon content we're doing. Good gracious. Where I will be hopefully videoing and doing some bits of some playthroughs of that when we get around to it. That was a plan anyway. We played a couple of games of it. We're still just kind of getting a feel for it. So hopefully we'll do that soon down the road. But yeah, War of the Ring card game. I'm enjoying that. It was one I took a punt on. I used Patreon funds to get it with the intent that I would do the playthroughs and stuff for the Patreon peeps. And we will do a review down the road for that, which everyone can see because I'm that generous. Aside from that, we've played Tapestry. We've been back to Tapestry a couple of times. Robbie likes Tapestry, even though he does terribly at it. We had a donking game of it the other day where everyone scored over 200 points. It was insane. It is random fest. We had all the expansions in, and yes, much of random crazy shit occurred. Something about it, I enjoyed the puzzle of what you're trying to sort out for Tapestry, that sort of thing it's doing, as I've mentioned many times before. Other than that, we played a shit ton of Scout, and that's about it. Yes. What else is going on? We played, actually thinking of played stuff, I went away to think. One is coming up that we will be playing later, shiny stuff on me, is this Freelancers crossword game by Plaid Hat Games. This is the next step up. It's like a sequel, kind of. It's a follow-up to Forgotten Waters, which was a pirate-themed crosswords game. And in that version, they kind of diverted away from the original Dead of Winter crosswords game. Had a deck of cards that you were playing for, and I really enjoyed Dead of Winter. I loved the mechanism of the crossroads system and what it potentially offered, and they had lots of ideas of what they were going to do, none of which really came to pass until much later. And then in an unsatisfying effort with Gen 7 that I've still not really managed to be bothered to play with, even though it's got a lot of stuff in the box, and I bought it for a stupid amount of money and then never played it. But at some point maybe we will, because I loved the crossroads mechanism, but I'd heard disappointing things about it. Dead of Winter I thought was fabulous, really captured that. It's got lots of interesting stuff going on with hidden traitors, yada yada yada, and this cross mode mechanism where cards would come out that would activate certain stuff depending on other things going on around the table. So they brought out Forgotten Waters, I am right, Forgotten Waters, which was a pirate-themed Crossroads game, but this time they took the Crossroads mechanism and actually integrated it into an app that you played, and it offered like a one and done in an evening sort of light RPG-ish session of you leveling characters up and going on zany pirate adventures. So what we have here is Freelancers, which takes that app mechanism and all the sort of kind of basic one and done in an evening RPG setting type stuff that the pirate game did, Forgotten Wars did, and supplants it into a post-apocalyptic future for Earth, with like this Adventure Time aesthetic and this kind of tongue-in-cheek idea of this broken bit economy and all this sort of stuff going on, and you venturing out and doing it with some more traditional RPG elements. Now, I've not played it yet, but I've skimmed through it. I'm going to bring it. So the main point of getting this was I'd seen enough buzz about it. I thought, oh, sounds interesting. I liked the pirate game, and what we've been crying out for on a Friday night, Bob especially, has been looking for an RPG session type game, something like a big campaign game where you can roll dice and level characters up. And we've played Imperial Assault, but that's long hog. He wants to play Gloomhaven or something, but that's never going to happen. Ben has a copy of Frosthaven, but knowing the amount of admin and work involved in Frosthaven and the amount of input you need to put into it, it's just a lot of work, and especially to port that around is going to be a nightmare. So Freelancers seems like an eloquent solution to our Bob problem. And I'm quite fascinated by the idea of it. So what you get a rulebook. Shocking in that you would do that. It's quite densely written in the rulebook. It is all can be taught via the app if you so wish, but there is rules there to set up the game and all that sort of stuff. We get, like we did in Forbidden Wars, though this seems slightly lesser of them, but is a book that is all the different areas of the board. I'm not going to go too far into this in case I spoil something, but essentially what you get is you get a location, you get some art, and you get options and actions you can do on this board side of the book. And this will change obviously in different scenarios, and other stuff will happen. And then we get lots of other stuff. We get lots of counters, loads of counters, of course. Decks of cards, a couple of decks of cards. One is treasure cards you get throughout the game. Others are like level up stuff and things you do to your characters. You get a lot of these tiles which all represent, when you play, it plays up to 7 I think this game, which is kind of cool, which the Pipe one did as well. Everyone gets a job, depending on how many players there are, depending on what jobs you've got. You get someone's tracking health or XP or some other stuff. I have one critique, these dials are very floppy things. They're like that. I can see that being problematic. Well, we'll see. Anyway, so you're doing different things, tracking stuff and all that. You get these pads in here of various different characters and various different abilities and stuff, well, classes, and you essentially take one of these and mash them together, and that is your character. And then when you play, you fill out some details here, some real basic details, and you'll track health and stuff and all that on these sheets, and other bits and pieces all get tracked on there. On the here, same thing, and on the back of these is like they did in Forgotten Waters, Jesus, was a little bit of story and stuff about the character. And then you also have, again like that, and that is a map, and there's again a mix of maps that you will play over in line with the scenario, and these will trigger different things as you play. You can track achievements and bits on there at the back, and that's how that all works. Other than that, you get some standees for your various characters. Again, with the standees a bit wobbly, though these guys haven't fallen out, so hey, we might be right. A big wad of RPG-ish dice, which is kind of cool, and a bag to stick all that in. So there we go. I really enjoyed the Forgotten Waters game, the pirate game. It was a lot of fun. It was quite light, but I enjoyed what it was doing, and it was good. It was a good laugh when we played it on the Fridays. I have high hopes for that. I looked around and seen some videos. I know Dice Tower gave it a very good write-up recently. Some big numbers against it. And if it does anything close to what Forgotten Waters does, which was, I think we played it just coming out of lockdown, I think. We may have even attempted to play it online, I can't remember. But it was really good fun. It had that tongue-in-cheek, adventure sort of stupid game. doing stuff, you're rolling lots of dice, and stuff was happening, and it was kind of this semi-cooperative story played out with you all, and it was good fun. So I have, high hopes for that one, and we'll be playing that, probably the weekend, I would suspect. That's the plan. So that's that. Right, that's all of that stuff. Shall we do some news?
Here is the news.
News! This is the news. All the breaking news fit to print. Here we go. There's a lot of news, actually. I think I found some news. So what we got? The top off of the charts on this one is really Stronghold Games. They've got the latest Kickstarter running for Prelude 2 for Terraforming Mars on Kickstarter. I think at last count it was over 1.3 million it had raised. There's a bunch of Mats Among Us stuff on there, but essentially Prelude 2 and an Ultima solo mode you can get. But that is mired in some level of controversy because they have essentially announced that they are using AI to generate the art in the game, which has caused somewhat of a bit of a backlash, although looking at it, not financially damaged them at this point in time. So why the beef? AI is a big thing at the moment, a big subject. You need only cast your eye towards Hollywood at the moment, where I believe the strikes are still running. The Writers Guild and the Screen Actors Guild are both out on strike at the moment in industrial action. I think the writers have been striking now for something like 8 to 9 months, maybe. It's been a long haul. And one of the direct things, aside not to get too down on the road of the actors and the writers thing, but one of their main things they've brought up, aside from the streaming services and how they're not getting paid, is AI, and AI being used in development of scripts and other things. So that's kind of a force of thing there that, writers' rooms being affected by that sort of stuff. This, so more coming down the Terraforming Mars route with the AI and art, which is a little bit even more insidious. So at the end of the day, what the AI will do is it will skim a bunch of images and pull stuff forward, and you can use that to paint the game. Now, Terraforming Mars never had the greatest production design. Let's be honest, none of the art is that great. It's always suffered from looking a bit clip artish anyway, and I think in the early versions, they pretty much is what they did for Terraforming Mars originally, was just have a bunch of clip art for the cards a lot of the time. It is not the most graphically well-designed set of games. So, you can see the logic in we use AI to do the art. I get it. Understandable. However, number one, you are not paying for any artists. There's the first issue I think people have got beef with. And, probably not paying for the assets your program is skimming and whatever else they're using it for. AI generally, for that regards, in the creative arts, I can see totally the concerns for, because I love art in board games. There's something about the aesthetic of a board game, the art and design, graphic design of it. I mean, you need only look at stuff like Vincent Dutoit, who's wonderful, amazing art, and Franz Kleber. There's loads of artists bring a certain aesthetic and feel to a game, and the idea of using it to cut them out of the picture to save yourself money kind of sounds a bit of like a dick move, doesn't it? Just so yeah, I don't support it because we don't know where we are yet. We seem to be fucking around with something. Where's this going? I'm not putting a tin hat on. I'm not getting into paranoid levels of stuff, but AI has been introduced all over the place. We use it in the hospital for some forms of software that's been developed at the moment in regards to dealing with patient stuff. So it's out there, it's being used, it's going, it's in the creative arts, is already being used. You've seen videos, we've seen stuff being produced by this stuff and what it can do. And at the moment, it does what it does. But usually you can go, that's AI, because it doesn't quite look right. And the thing doesn't really know what it's doing. It's just doing what it's told to do at the moment and kind of copying from what it can find. So where do I come on it? Number one, I wasn't going to back the project anyway, because I'll wait for it to come to retail, because it's going to be massively expensive to back on the project. Most of the shit I don't need. Prelude 2 does interest me, because I think Prelude is the best expansion for Terraforming Mars that they brought out. Really, to be honest, you don't need the other stuff. I think you could probably play the base game and that be sorted. The others just add stuff. But yeah, I think it's a big move. They're not paying artists. I know there's a whole thing about the Frixis brothers or whatever it is that they only did in-house design of it anyway, and let's be honest, it does look like garbage. So I mean, it can't make it look worse. But yeah, generally is pay your fucking artists, pay your creative people. Don't fucking use this shit. You know, it's not cool. I will stick with people that's giving me graphic design and art that's gorgeous and evokes the aesthetics of the game and all that sort of stuff. AI is not, at this point, going to do that. And more importantly, pay the talent, okay? Someone does that and they do it well, they should be paid for it. There you go. Sermon over. What else is going on? CMON. CMON have had a thingy. I don't even know what to call it. A conference or something. They've been announcing some bits. They announced most recently, I think it was a Zombicide, Marvel Zombies, now Deceased, which is DC's kind of zombie equivalent of Marvel Zombies. They're doing, that's their next Kickstarter project that's coming out. Yay for the Kickstarter project full of plastic. I've not backed Marvel Zombies, I've not done any of that. I mean, I enjoy the comic books, enjoy the ideas of it. I'm not going to fork over hundreds and hundreds of dollars for Call Mini or Not to send me lots and lots of plastic. And if I was, the DC one would probably be the one that would more interest me. Again, though, no, not doing that. But one thing they did announce, which is fascinating and interesting and lovely and cool, is Cthulhu Dark Providence, which is designed by Martin Wallace and is essentially a Study in Emerald 3rd edition. Now, I really enjoy Study in Emerald. The 1st edition is it's based on a Neil Gaiman story, short story about Sherlock Holmes dealing with Cthulhu, essentially, and the Gaiman story was set during that period of time and had to do with all the political shenanigans going on and all that sort of stuff. The 1st edition of that game was this kind of insanely mad science Martin Wallace kind of project that evoked that theme and had some cool aesthetic things and just kind of these lots of weird and wonderful little art rules and stuff going on there that just kind of involved in this twisted sort of hidden identity, weird shit going on, lots of kind of education sort of stuff in there, and was a bit quirky and a bit wobbly, but it was kind of cool. That went out of print, was really hard to get hold of. They did a 2nd edition of it, which they kind of streamlined everything down, took out some of they smoothed it all down. And whilst it works and kind of still does what the 1st edition did, that smoothing off process kind of lost a little bit of the charm of what that game had. So now, Call Mini have done, and this sounds like it's going straight to retail. I've essentially announced this version of it, which is the 3rd edition, essentially, but it's not, because they'd have to pay the license because they renamed it. But it looks like, and it is Study in Emerald, a 3rd edition. And they've said that they're going to lean more into the 1st edition feel. So we shall see. I really loved the 1st edition. I never got hold of it. I have played it. I own and have the 2nd edition, which I enjoy. I haven't played it enough, but it just feels a little lacking knowing what we're missing. This has my interest. We shall see. And it's going straight to retail, which is kind of cool. So we'll see how much bling it gets and what it looks like. But I am definitely interested if it can do anything to kind of tie up between the 2nd edition and 1st and come up with sort of a hybrid between, which has that charm to it. I'm on board for that. So very good. There you go. I'm not completely discounting Call Mini or Not. Spiel. Well, Spiel's coming in a couple of weeks, I think. I mean, personally, I'm not going to be going there. It's a massive show. I've had a look that's coming. Personally, not a lot grabbed my interest. I did skim. I mean, there is a War of the Ring expansion coming out of it, which is mainly solo play, but a new faction. Yeah. There's the Terraforming Mars dice game will probably be there, and Imperial Miners from Portal. But there's not much else. I'm not seeing much. And I think, cast my mind back to the last couple of Spiels. Whilst there's been stuff kind of like Gollum, I think it was a year or two ago, and some other stuff kind of buzz at the time, they quickly petered out and fizzled off and gone. There's nothing really there. So considering the amount of stuff that comes out of Spiel, not much has stuck over the last couple of years. So, and again, this year, I'm not seeing personally anything that's grabbing my attention. However, the thing with Spiel, which is exciting me about it, is it's such a mad, sprawling, massive show from all over the world, and designers and all sorts coming from all over the world, that often there's that diamond in the rough that kind of suddenly pops up. The downside of that sometimes is it's usually from a small publisher, harder to get hold of. So it appears people get it when they're there, but it becomes very hard and sought after, and maybe sometimes picked up by a big publisher to reprint. But yeah, there's that. So that's the gamble you take. But I personally have not seen anything that's leaving me like, beside myself excited for it. But if you know of something that I'm missing and want to say, then bloody well tell me. If not, then shush. Breaking news, PSC Games, Plastic Soldier Company. I'm very late to the game on this, but I was prompted by a Facebook post regarding this. So PSC Games had on GameFound Total War board game. Now I saw this at the expo. It was still in development stage. It's already funded at GameFound, and it looks. Having played the Total War games, I was like, I have no idea how you're ever conceivably going to compress this down into something that's playable on a board game. And I wasn't horribly convinced by what I saw at the show. The designer that was demoing it, and I was like, it still looks like there's a lot of shit going on behind this. It looked like a lot of kind of spinning wheels and not necessarily attached to the vehicle. So, not really been on my radar. I don't quite know when it funded, but I did see a comment on Facebook, someone lamenting that they weren't going to get their game because Plastic Soldier Company had stopped or something. When I looked deeper into this, much more detail into this, what actually has occurred is some time ago, and I don't know when, PSC parted ways with Total War, the project, the GameFound project, and handed the reins over, sold the project. I don't know what agreement was made at that point in time, to the designer of the game, Mr. Hall. Ian Hall? I think it was Ian Hall. And that was possibly back tail end of last year, beginning of this year. What then subsequently seems to have happened is there's been delay after delay after delay, which has been mainly unfortunate series of occurrences. Mr. Hall, not least of which, Mr. Hall was electrocuted and then contracted COVID. Now, he's alive and well. He's alive. So this is not really a laughing matter, but it is kind of like, well, that was a roller coaster I went on. One worries that Mr. Hall, in his current frazzled state, quite literally, is probably struggling anyway, and the project was quite. So just it's being aware of what's coming down the road. For instance, I loved a lovely dish of fresh shellfish tonight, with no concerns to my well-being, because clearly I'll be all right.
Starts with a slight fever, dryness of the throat. As the virus penetrates red blood cells, the victim becomes dizzy. Begins to experience an itching, a rash. From there, the poison goes to work on the central nervous system, causing severe muscle spasms, followed by the inevitable drooling. At this point, the entire digestive system collapses, accompanied by uncontrollable flatulence, until finally the poor bastard is reduced to a quivering, wasted piece of jelly.
Mumble, cock it. Unrecognized expletive. A whale's vagina. Board games.
Other stuff. So other stuff we've been entertaining ourselves with. Well, that's always interesting, isn't it? Fascinating, I'm sure. Deep Rock Galactic. I've been playing a bunch of that. We play it on Thursday nights. We do a video game night between the Sunday crowd. It's a hangover from COVID, to be honest with you. We just started playing online, and now the Thursday night online gaming has stayed. We were originally playing online board games, but we've kind of migrated into video games. Deep Rock Galactic is one we found with it's enjoyable, stupid fun. And I saw there's a board game of it, which initially I completely passed me by because I wasn't playing the video game. Then now I'm going, but it is expensive. It's allegedly fun. Has anyone got it? Anyone played it? Is it any good? Let me know. What else have we got on? So stuff I've been reading. I'm reading all sorts of stuff, but I've been reading at the moment is this Star Wars Shadow of the Sith. This is by Adam Christopher. It is a book that bridges the gap between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. And essentially, it's utter waste of time, if I'm honest with you. I'm about that far into it at the moment. It follows Lando and Luke. Lando's looking for his missing daughter. That's clearly not going to be resolved until later. And Luke, and they are looking for Rey and her parents. And Rey's still a child at this point in time. The parents are on the fleeing from Oki of Bestoon, who is briefly mentioned and shown as her Rey's parents in the lamentable Rise of Skywalker, or whatever the fuck the last one was called. Anyway, it was cheap. I picked it up. I thought I would do. So yes, the problem is there's no real stakes to this, because we know he'd be fine. We know he'd be fine. We know Oki's not going to make it out. We know the mum and dad aren't going to make it out. There's a Jedi turned up sort of thing, as a Sith. It's doing lots of it's just doing a lot of sort of heavy lifting of trying desperately to make sense of the sequel movies, specifically the last one, by kind of wedging everything in. Exegol and all this. If you're a big Star Wars lore fan, I'm sure that you will get something out of this, possibly, but it is kind of a non-event, because it's kind of dealing with a bunch of characters we already know their fates. There's no real stakes to this. Nothing really feels like, It is filling in some gaps of the monumental plot holes that exist in the sequel movie. So if you're hungry for some of that, then have at it. Speaking of which, Ahsoka, we're now coming to the last couple of episodes of that. On the whole, I have really enjoyed it. It visually, thematically looks and feels Star Wars, like old school Star Wars. I would have critiques. The critiques I have is the story is kind of slow moving. It is taking its time to get there, and while we are having character development, and some of it's quite good, it's still kind of ponderous at times. And you kind of think this was an 8-episode season. I kind of felt we would be further along the road than we are now, with everything. However, again, going back to what I said about Shadow of the Sith, if you're a big Star Wars nerd, and after a lot of that sort of other sort of hanging on bits of plot and expanding the universe, and obviously including the Rebels characters from the Rebels cartoon show, all of that, then clearly this is going to be catnip for you. Thrawn has now turned up in the most recent episode. That's all I'm going to say at the moment for that, but it does hint at there was a book some time ago which involved Death Troopers, and if you know anything about that, it was zombie stormtroopers. I don't know if that's what we're getting in this, but that's kind of interesting. I like kind of what they're doing. Ray Stevenson's character, brilliant. I'm wondering where he's going. Is he going to make it out of the season? Sadly, Ray's no longer with us, so it does leave me pondering what the ultimate fate of that character is going to be now, which is a shame, because he's cracking it. He's cracking it. He's doing a damned good job of doing what he's doing. Balin Skrull was the character he's playing. Anyway, fascinating stuff. I mean, if you're a Star Wars nut, then you're already watching it. If you're not, probably not a good entry point, to be honest with you, at this point. Maybe start with the original movies. But yeah, if you're a fan of all that sort of stuff, fine. If you're looking desperately for a Star Wars TV show, then watch Andor. Because whilst you still need a bit of Star Wars thing, it's more that plot and story, which is fascinating and very political for Star Wars. Worth a watch. And Andor 2's on the way. Lovely. That's that. Well, that's it, really. That is it. So hopefully I'll get some games played this weekend. I'm going to work on a few more videos. I'm just trying to get a bunch of stuff filmed. I've got a couple of days off work. So, I'm trying not to overdo it. I'm trying to get some stuff in the pot to be able to edit later, so I can have some content dropped. But it's time and all that sort of stuff. So stuff, wheels in motion, stuff I'm thinking about. Very nice. What else are we doing now? Spiel's coming. I don't imagine I'll do much more coverage of Spiel, because frankly, I'm not going to go. B, I've not seen a whole lot of stuff that's got the buzz, as I've said earlier in the video. And that's it. I've got some movies to get through. I'm trying to do some movie education with the boys. I think we might just start on the John Waters retrospective, because he's just had I think in New York Film somewhere or other, he's had like a convention, set up an exhibition. And if you've never watched any John Waters stuff, then poor you. But I'm thinking of going on a bit of a John Waters retrospective. I'm not sure how deep a dive to go with that. I don't know if the boys are really going to be able to cope with the likes of Pink Flamingos or Female Trouble. But maybe bring it forward to something more palatable. Maybe like Serial Mum, which I think is a fantastic movie. There you go. So that's what I'm up to. I have other irons and fires, of course, as always. However, I also have the work ethic of a sloth. So what are you going to do? Look after yourselves. Have a lovely weekend whenever we get to it. If you've already had the weekend, then hey, how was the weekend? And there's a new week. Shit. And I will see you soon. I have no doubt. Ta-ta. Farewell. Goodbye.